Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X-Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X-Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X-Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X-Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X-Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Paranormal Stakeout. I'm Larry Lawson, your host and guide as we continue our journey into the unknown to find out what really exists on the other side. And as always, I'm coming to you from the headquarters of the X-Zone Radio and Television Broadcast Network in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. And I'm speaking to you from the studios in the Southern Command Post of the X-Zone Nation in beautiful Vero Beach and Fellsmere, Florida, in the good old US of A. And tonight, got a return guest. Very excited to have Mr. Mark Muncy back on the show. Mark is the creator of Hellview Cemetery, a charity haunted house in Central Florida that was so infamous it was banned by the city of St. Petersburg. An author of horror and science fiction, he has spent over 3 decades collecting ghostly tales and reports of legendary beasts in Florida. Eerie Florida is his first work for the History Press, and he currently lives in St. Petersburg, Florida, on the remains of an ancient Indian midden with his fiancée and illustrator, Kari Schultz. Occasionally, he's visited by his daughters when they remember he's still there. And what, Mark, you may be disappearing on him from the sounds of it.
Well,
How are you, my friend?
We're doing well. Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, welcome back. I as I'm reading this, I'm looking at the Hellview Cemetery. Tell us a little bit. Yeah, tell me a little bit about that, because I even noticed your Skype address is hellview.net. What is that exactly?
Well, originally it was it was back in '96. We'd done a couple years working at Halloween Horror Nights, and I was a new dad. And we were making the drive from St. Petersburg to Tampa along the I-4 dead zone. And, it's a pretty scary road. And I was like, I'm a new dad. I should probably just do something at the house. So we decided to build our own haunted house in our yard. And when we started digging, we discovered that we were on top of a shell midden. Mm-hmm.
Now for our guests, so let me interrupt you there. For our guests that are listening, what is a midden? Can you describe that?
The Native Americans of the area, which in this area were the Tokabagans, or maybe the Weeden Island culture, they basically, and it's pretty common all over Florida and many other coasts. Instead of burial mounds, what they do is they come down here. They were drawn to the beautiful sand and and beaches, and and they would, and their primary diet was mostly shellfish. So they would just eat the shellfish, throw them in big piles in the middle of town, and cover them with dirt. And they would just get bigger and bigger and bigger, and they just kept covering them in dirt to keep the smell out. And that became their garbage dumps. That was, really early landfills. And that was, and they became shell middens. And some were burial mounds and some other things like that too, and temple mounds. But the shell middens are the most common. And pretty much anywhere in Florida that rises more than a few feet is probably a shell midden of some sort.
Yeah, we got a ton of them over here in our neck of the woods too. So anyway, didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to make sure we knew what that was.
Yeah. Not everybody. Yeah, I keep forgetting. Sometimes you talk these terms so much, and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot. I got to explain to everybody. But yeah, no. So we dug down it, but the archaeologist who came out said, well, I'm just glad it wasn't one of the lost cemeteries of Tampa Bay. And I'm like, well, lost cemeteries in Tampa Bay? I didn't know about this. And and suddenly I start looking into it. And immediately we discovered there were several pioneer cemeteries that were no longer around. Nobody knew where they were. The city had sprung up and been built over them, after they'd been abandoned. So we found out one of them was called Hellview, and the Tales from the Crypt fan in me immediately said, oh, okay, we're calling it Hellview. And that became our thing, is that this lost cemetery rises every Halloween. And so that was the key. We started basing all of our stories in the haunted house on local lore and legends, and we spookied them up. We called it hellviewing it, and and now most people, you're going through a haunted house, you don't know, okay, this lady with vampire fangs is jumping out at me, but we had based her on a legend in Tampa Bay called Madame Orr, who ran a bordello and was so infamous it got burned down by Teddy Roosevelt and his Rough Riders, and so we decided that sounded just like From Dusk Till Dawn, so we made her a vampire. Now, you're walking through the haunted house, you just see this, vampire lady jumping out at you in a burning building. You don't understand the story, but if you went to our website, before you came to visit us, you saw this story and you read it. And these stories started becoming a bit famous on their own, and we didn't know that at the time. Now, to give you some timeline on this, this is back on a GeoCities website, and we had an AOL address at the time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that'll give you some, for internet ancients there. Anyway, so, what happened was we started, we would collect this, and people would come in and go, wow, we haven't seen Madame Orr in a couple years. Is she still around? We haven't seen, the Blackwater clan. We read about them a couple years ago. And, and so suddenly our characters had a following. And I was happy to show some Tampa history that nobody knew. And of course, we spread out beyond Tampa Bay pretty quick because, there's only so many stories you can do. And, instead of having a werewolf jump out at you, we had a skunk ape jump out at you. And, all this stuff. So it was a lot of fun. And that's where it all really started, was way back then. When the city shut us down, what we had was piles of stories because people were sending us other legends and stuff. And we needed a place to put them. And so we we're like, okay. So we had put a couple books out during the time of the haunt that were mostly just stories of the stories from the haunted house website, repackaged. And that was more because some people had been posting our stories and claiming them as theirs. And especially on the early creepypasta website and stuff like that. And that annoyed us. So we were like, oh, here, let's post the books. So that way nobody can steal our copyrights anymore.
So you were out gathering these stories. Did you become a paranormal investigator of sorts, or?
Kind of. We started. What happened was people wanted the real stuff. We started realizing that people didn't want these. They wanted the spooky versions, yeah, but they really wanted the real legend. It's like, oh, you talked about this. Where's that come from? And we're like, okay, let's start really looking into it. And so we kind of became paranormal journalists. We would, go on ghost investigations. We would go on Bigfoot hunts, or skunk ape hunts down here in Florida. And go on, UFO watches. We hit the whole gamut. And so, but we weren't really doing the investigation. I mean, we were participating and helping as best we could, but we were there more for the story, more for the experience. And we let the guys who knew what they were doing run their show. And that's why we were just kind of there to record it. And that became our book, Eerie Florida, which was our bestseller. We followed up a year later with Freaky Florida that came out last year. And now our third book is coming out this fall called Creepy Florida. And my lovely and talented now wife, Kari Schultz, is the illustrator. So she brings those monsters and ghosts that won't pose for pretty pictures to life with her illustrations.
Well, how important is the history to you? You're talking about the legends, but tell us how you wrap the history into the legends.
See, and that's what it all goes back to was I've always been a history buff, but when we were in St. Augustine, one of my earliest trips to St. Augustine with my young children, we had just moved down to Florida, and we were taking a ghost tour of St. Augustine because hey, I was looking for more stories, and we had just moved back to Florida, and we were looking for stories for the haunted house, and the ghost tour led us by Huguenot Cemetery. And I already knew the story of Judge Stickney, a creepy ghost story there. And so I wasn't really interested in that. I wanted new stuff. So I took my youngest daughter over by the gates, the old gates, because I knew that's where the tour was going to wind up.
Right.
And she was running around playing by the old town gates, right across from the Castillo, the big famous castle there. And and she comes running up to me after a minute and says, Dad, my friend over there tells me we've got to be careful of Jack. And I'm like, huh? She's like, just watch out for Jack. It's bad news. I'm like, okay. And she ran off and went back over there. And I was just kind of watching. I'm like, who is she playing with? Well, the ghost tour catches up to us right about that time. And he starts talking about the ghost of the gatekeeper that I didn't know about. And the fact that the gatekeeper had a daughter. And after the gatekeeper died after a yellow fever outbreak, his daughter stayed on duty for a couple more weeks, warning people about yellow fever and stay away from the town.
Yeah.
And then suddenly the history buff in me goes, wait a minute, they didn't call it yellow fever. What did they call it? And so I asked the tour guide, and I said, do you know what they called yellow fever back then? Because they didn't call it that. And they called it this, they called it that, and they also called it Yellow Jack. And suddenly it hit me. And I looked over at my daughter, and this is her earliest memory, is seeing the little girl at the gates telling her to watch out for Jack. And and so suddenly it hit me that these ghosts, it's history. If I didn't know the history of that, I would have just assumed my daughter was talking about some guy named Jack.
Amen. The history is so important. You're telling that story, and I'm listening to it. I'm really familiar with it because I'm just down the road from St. Augustine a bit, and that's quite an interesting story. In fact, that my son and I had our very first significant experience in St. Augustine, so that's a pretty darn cool place.
Oh yeah, that town is amazing.
When we're getting ready to take our first break here in just a minute, but I'm really curious to find out if, in all your many trips through Florida, which we're going to delve into more in a few minutes, I would really like to know how many experiences that you've had while you're out with groups. I know you're not a paranormal investigator per se, but have you had some experiences?
Be happy to tell you when we get back.
Okay, that's fair enough. So, folks, we're getting ready to take our first break. I'm with Mark Muncy, author of Eerie Florida. So stay with us. We've got some more great stories, and we're going to be back to you in just a few minutes. But I do want to mention his website, Eerie Florida, EERIE Florida.com. We'll be right back after this, folks.
It's hard to listen to the news without realizing we're living in volatile, unprecedented times. Yet never has there been such an opportunity to transform the human condition. As old structures fail, where can we find the guidance to co-create a better way? Find Your Path Home is an ever-evolving, leading-edge information, education, and healing resource center designed to support and guide you on your path to unity and enlightenment. Based on sound principles employed by shaman worldwide, we provide techniques that can support you through the current transitions, offering online shamanic classes, international long-distance shamanic healing sessions, complimentary Mission Evolution radio episodes and Stairway to Heaven TV vignettes, seminars, retreats, and much more. All of this can be found on findyourpathhome.com.
So I was watching the X Zone TV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, simultv.com, simultv.com.
What's simultv.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean simultv.com.
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 Right. simultv.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a simultv.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she'd come from the hereafter to tell me about simultv.com. She even spelled it out for me. simultv.com, sonny boy.
simultv.com.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
simultv.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all know about simultv.com. simultv.com.
And we are back on Paranormal Stakeout with my guest tonight, Mark Muncy of Eerie, Florida. Mark, in our last segment there towards the end, though, I made mention of had you had any experiences yourself while you're out researching these creepy legends in the beautiful Sunshine State? Can you tell us a little bit about some of the things that you've encountered?
One of our earliest trips, and it was actually when we were just kicking around the idea of doing Eerie, Florida, we teamed up with a local ghost troupe here in St. Petersburg, and they were tearing down the Bellevue Biltmore Hotel out on Clearwater Beach.
Yeah.
Yes, it was a beautiful place. I think it was the host of the first ever TAPS Con when they were here doing their convention. It was the first time they'd ever brought Robert the Doll up out of Key West. Was for that convention back in the day. So that was, late 80s, early 90s, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty amazing time. And anyway, that building was, is fantastic history and infamously haunted on the third floor by a bellhop. And we went there. It was one of their last days. It was actually their last day being open before they were tearing it down. And they had a big to-do. It's kind of funny. I had a dual purpose there. I was there. They were selling all the stuff there. And I thought, oh, man, I can snag some stuff. It'll be some spooky stuff for the haunted house. But I also wanted to go with some groups and see if there were any ghosts. And we went with this one paranormal team, a local Tampa Bay team. And they were there to look for the ghosts. And I'm with them. And we get there, and there are people everywhere. And of course, the stuff's selling for a lot out of my price range. I was naive, but there are people dressed up. There's all these people are dressed up in like 20s flappers outfits, and and the bellhops are all dressed up in the old bellhop uniforms. It was crazy, and we were like, oh man, this is wild. This is cool. Something we won't see again. So we're taking a lot of photos down there, catching all these people and stuff. And we go, at one point we're like, okay, we got to get up to the third floor. Got to get up to the third floor. So the group breaks off, and we go up to the third floor. And as soon as we get out of the elevator, we see a bellhop come out of the haunted room and start walking towards us. And I'm like, oh, that's perfect. So cool. They had somebody up here, dressed to do it. It was amazing. And they're all like, yeah, that's bravo, man, bravo. And he walks by us. And then the girl on the far end looks over at us and goes, who are you talking to? So we had cameras, we had equipment, they had infrared, they had microphones, they had all this stuff. None of it was turned on because nobody thought it was the ghost. Everybody thought it was one of the costume guys downstairs. It was solid. It was real. And then we're all like, where did he go? He just disappeared. And
oh man, that's the way it always works.
Always works, right? And it's like, and so that's when, when we talk at conventions or, whenever public speaking at libraries and stuff like that, I always ask everybody, how many of you have ever seen a ghost? Hold up your hand. And, some people will, and a lot of people don't. And I go, for those of you that didn't, how do you know? And that's when I tell them that story. Yeah. I mean, I was with professionals, and they didn't think about it at the time. They were going to set up at the end of the hall. Yeah.
How many people saw this?
4. 4 saw it, 1 didn't, and including myself, I was one of the ones that saw it. So 4 of us saw it, 1 didn't, and that shows you how some people just don't see it. Some people can't see it, and that's when we start looking into the science behind it and stuff like that, and that makes you a believer. Now we've had some other experiences on some other events. We went to the grave of Wiccademus, which is a legendary site up on Amelia Island. The grave of a supposed demon, and if you say certain words, it's supposed to conjure it, and bring the winds railing and the ground shaking. And we tried it, and as soon as we did, the winds picked up and a freak gale came through, and it even got on the news as we were driving home. We couldn't record any audio there for our microphones because the wind was so strong suddenly. And of course, on the news, it's talking about sudden gusts, coming from the Gulf, or coming from the Atlantic, and it's just like, wow. I know it was coincidence, but it was still a scary time. So.
Well, and that's the sort of thing that feeds legends too, doesn't it?
Exactly, and that's it all feeds, and that's that's part of what we do is we get these weird legends, and we try to boil it down to, okay, where did this really come from? There's a great story in St. Pete called Mini Lights, and it's if you see these lights on a hill, something's coming after you and you'll disappear. And then on the south side, the same version of the legends is it's Minnie Lightning. She's the voodoo queen of St. Petersburg, and she sends her alligator men out to catch your children if they're out after dark. And then there's another story about Minnie Lights was a burned down house where she was a boarding house lady who had circus people staying in her boarding house, so the town burned it down. And and that's the ghostly lights you see. So there's all these weird stories, and I'm like, where does this come from? And so you start boiling down into it, and you find out, okay, there was a Mennonite that had a boarding house in Gibsonton across the bay, which was the circus town. There was a circus fire in that area. The Mennonite community is still heavy over there. So Mini Lights, Mennonite, circus fire, so that kind of ties in. What about alligator people and a voodoo queen? Where's that tie into this? And then suddenly we discovered tourism. That was the key. We were in the St. Pete History Museum, and we're digging through the archives, and we find there was an ad for a local alligator farm, and the ad was in the form of a little fan that you'd hand out to tourists, a little hand fan to cool yourself off with while you're standing out in the Florida heat in the 20s or 30s. And sure enough, the fan had a picture of little children being chased by alligators. And that's when you realize they used to go out and round up the poor kids, usually African American, sadly, and they would come out at night and they would kidnap the kids and throw them in the alligator pits to entertain tourists. Can't
Whoa. I want to make sure I heard that right. They would take kids and throw them in the alligator pits to entertain tourists?
Yep, totally. And that's where the legend from the south side is. You see the lights, because that was the guys hunting for children to kidnap them after dark. It was to keep your kids inside, and it morphed into this voodoo child, with alligator people that kidnap you. And that's how the story morphed. And it's like, oh my gosh, so the truth was scarier than any fiction on that legend.
But it also does something else. It shows that you're doing something that not enough of us folks in the business do, and that's do the proper research. You took basically a ghost story, you did the research, found the history, which is so vitally important, and found an even darker story, but something definitely not supernatural. And that's what makes history in this entire realm, this field, so blasted important.
Exactly, and that's why we're with History Press. History Press discovered, oh, hey, there's some money in these ghost books, and they do tie to history. And so thankfully they've been with us for 3 books now, and they love us. And it's been a joy so far. We're finally expanding out of the state. We've traveled 15,000 miles and only left the state a couple times. So it's it's time to move on. So
how often you said you've only been out of the state a couple of times? Is it part of your plan to start researching some of these legends, maybe South Georgia, South Carolina, places like that?
we were just at the Lizard Man Festival at Bishopville, South Carolina, just last month to talk to some eyewitnesses of that famous encounter, where they now have the Lizard Man Festival every year, which we were honored to be guests at, and that's part of what we're working on now. Is a new project with our publisher where we're going to be hitting almost everywhere we can and going to look into the history behind the classic legends, and then some you don't know, and then some paranormal hotspots, and we might throw in some good places to eat along the way because we're foodies at heart too. So,
well, I got to back you up a little bit. The Lizard Man, where'd you say that was?
It's at Bishopville, South Carolina. Famous encounter just a few years ago in the mid 90s, and it made national news, made international news. First spotted by a couple young teens, then some other people, and then a sheriff investigation into it. There's dozens of eyewitnesses now. The Scrape Ore Swamp is his hangout. The town of Bishopville actually issued a warning when the eclipse was coming through that area, saying they weren't sure how the eclipse was going to affect the Lizard Man, but be on your toes, that sort of thing.
Well, what did they say the Lizard Man is?
They don't know. He's definitely a reptilian, biped. It's their Bigfoot. It's
okay.
Their Mothman. They've claimed him as their own, and it's a swampy area. There's alligators. There's all kinds of stuff, and if the big alligator walking on two legs, hey, there you go.
You mentioned Bigfoot, and we have a mutual friend in Rob Robinson, the legend tripper. You've done some Bigfoot investigations also, right?
Yeah, we've gone on down here they're called skunk ape hunts.
Skunk apes, yeah.
We've done that. We actually did one Bigfoot hunt up in Georgia, and we've been out in the Ocala National Forest a lot, and the Green Swamp here in Florida. For those of you not familiar, that's the big, when you look at a nighttime picture of Florida and you see all those lights near the beaches and all the big city lights a little further inland, and then you get these two big dark spots, and some of that's the Everglades is one of the southern one, but then the two big dark spots in the middle is the Ocala National Forest and the Green Swamp, and those areas are still wild.
Well, we're going to get back. I want to talk a little bit more about Bigfoot and some of the other legends in just a second, but we're about ready to take our next break. So, folks, stay with us. I have Mark Muncy of Eerie, Florida with us. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
How would your life change if you could develop the business and personal skills that you need in order to make more money? Do you want to learn how to achieve your big life goals faster? Then go to findhiddenmoney.com and get the Goal for It online course. The course teaches you how you can set and achieve your biggest goals while completely overcoming the roadblocks to your goals so that you can realize your dreams and imagine more success. Go to findhiddenmoney.com.
Memorable dynamic presentations are a not-so-secret weapon in the business world. Do you have a powerful message that must be shared, but you haven't found a way to deliver that message? Do you want to be known as a top public speaker who gets amazing results? Are you ready to create and deliver your powerful message? Thomas Hides can help you create and deliver your speech to get the results you desire. Visit iconquality.com.
Did you expect your business to flourish, but instead it plateaued or didn't get off the ground yet? Would you like to achieve massive goals and discover new sources of income within your business? When you're ready to experience that type of success with fast results, Cindy Hendricks is the business coach for you. Her work with entrepreneurs and business owners has been life-changing. To get you and your business where you want to be, go to imaginemoresuccess.com.
Has the fear of public speaking stalled your business or personal life? What would you give to develop and maintain supreme confidence? Have an invaluable private program to always perform at your best. Imagine how you would feel. You can have all that and so much more today with Thomas Hyde's life-changing course called Number One Fear Unleashed. Visit numberonefear.com and be liberated from your fear of public speaking.
And we are back on Paranormal Stakeout. My guest tonight, Mark Muncy of the Eerie, Florida fame. Mark, just before we took our break, we were talking a little bit about swamp ape, skunk ape here in Florida. Many people refer to them as Bigfoot, Yeti, all kinds of things. A lot of times folks will talk to you about ghosts, but I want to hear a little bit more about your experience with the skunk ape. Have you ever actually uncovered any evidence yourself or been seen any evidence of its existence?
Well, what's interesting is we were actually going to the Myakka State Forest, which is a little south of Sarasota, on this side, of the state, and the Gulf Coast. And we were heading there for a different reason. There had been recent sightings of a flying humanoid that some people were calling a gargoyle, and we were invited there by a couple truck drivers who had seen it on their run, and then some campers in the area. So we were out there talking to campers about this, and we were trying to explain to them, what a cormorant is, which is a bird that kind of looks like a gargoyle from a distance, and just making sure that wasn't what they saw. And a couple of the campers were like, no, we know what a cormorant is. This was different. So it was something we were looking into for that. And then on our way back, one of the guides was a Bigfoot hunter in the area, a skunk ape hunter, and he pulls us aside and says, "Hey, look over here." And sure enough, there were prints, and they were not, the class. They were the classic, 4-toe and giant. And he immediately pulls out his, plaster casting kit that he had with him because he's an expert. That's what he did. We were going for something else, but here we got this. And so we took some photos. He took the casts, and we were going to come back the next day. It was way off the trail, so we thought we were pretty safe, come back the next day to get the casts. And that day, suddenly, there was a controlled burn in that area that was not announced. And so immediately, my conspiracy theory hackles start going up. And I'm like, there was our evidence, and it's gone. With a controlled burn. And it's like, what? Maybe, who knows? But that was definitely one of the coolest things in the wild as far as skunk apes go. We've heard a lot of noises and seen some unusual things, but that was the one that I was like, oh my gosh, that's a perfect footprint. And we were literally where nobody else had been. And why would it be out here?
Well, that was my next question, especially with a guy, and I'm not casting dispersions, just being the skeptical cop that I am. Any chance that foot was contrived or put there?
See, that was my thought, was maybe this guy did, but it's one reason why I don't mention names on this story is because I'm still jury's still out, to use another legal term there. But I don't think he was. I think honestly, he was as surprised to find it as we were. We almost stepped on it, and that's when he was like, we were looking for the general direction that these campers had pointed out the gargoyle was flying over, and then we see this, and that area's got some odd stories all about it in that area. So we do find some of these things tend to congregate in hot spots. I mean, there's theories now that Bigfoot, and some of these other unusual things, they tie to green flash stories and some other phenomena. So these communities that used to be so separate, the UFO groups, the paranormal groups, and the Bigfoot groups, they would always go, well, I don't talk to those yahoos, I don't talk to those weirdos, and all that. And now we're starting to realize maybe there's some overlap. And
maybe some dimensional issues, huh?
Exactly. And what we like to call preternatural, not supernatural. It's stuff we don't understand yet. The preternatural one generation becomes the natural of the next. A great Shirley Jackson quote.
So tell me, do you spend any time in the UFO community? Do you spend time looking at any of those legends?
Oh, yeah, quite a bit. We've been up to Gulf Breeze many times. and we've talked to many witnesses. We've been on a UFO watch. Didn't see anything completely unusual. We were up near Eglin Air Force Base and Pensacola Naval Station, so we did see some strange stuff in the lights at night, but it could easily have just been some aircraft that they're testing at night that they don't want anybody to see. Some of the boat stories are amazing. These people, a lot of USOs, the submerged objects, and then they tend to become UFOs. They are under the water, and then suddenly they take off flying, and they don't make any noise, barely displace the water, and fly away at incredible speeds. And the people who saw that, I mean, there's no reason, they're not looking for names, they're not looking for trying to get on, Ancient Aliens or anything. These people don't even know what that is. They're just telling their story, and it's pretty incredible, all these fields. And out here in Tampa Bay, I've had several people talk about the Black Triangle stuff over the bay. Now there's MacDill Air Force Base down here, so and we tend to lean a little more towards the terrestrial on this. We think they are some sort of experimental thing that they just don't want us to know about yet. Because I remember one day driving home from school one day, way back in high school days, and seeing these F-16s escorting what looked like a flying saucer. I mean, swear. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a flying saucer. It's broad daylight, and the F-16s are escorting it. They're going to announce it to the world. Get home. I turn on the news. I'm trying to find, where's the news? And it was the unveiling of the stealth bomber. Which, if you hadn't seen it before, looked a heck of a lot like a UFO in the photo, in reality.
Well, we were talking earlier about uncovering history and actually finding answers that at times were stranger than the fiction. But don't you also think that sometimes folks honestly believe they see something, but either don't have the knowledge or the background to identify it as something that's actually terrestrial or real, and it becomes therefore a legend? Do you find that happening?
Oh yeah, quite a bit. I mean, that's what we were talking about. We still are pretty sure that the gargoyles were a cormorant. Just a big one, because we did find several cormorant nests in that area, and they do, when you're in the dark. Yeah, I would buy that as a gargoyle, or even even on a sunny day, if one's flying at my truck that's 80 miles an hour. Yeah, I'm gonna panic.
Well, I think those are the same birds we call snake birds over here, the big long neck, and they dive under the water.
Exactly, and they got kind of the long wings, and they do tend to hover, and you see the little dangly, their tail feathers look like little legs, and so yeah, it would look like a gargoyle in flight.
Well,
no, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, other than your daughter and the event in St. Augustine, which I find pretty fantastic, what's the best piece of evidence, whether it be UFOs, skunk ape, ghosts? What's the best piece of evidence that you've come across while you're out researching with these groups?
It's funny. You find this stuff in we're out in the hunts and stuff. We find some good evidence. We get a lot of EVPs and stuff that, and it's funny because you do find the groups that are trying to show off for you. And I remember one in particular was showing his EMF detector as he ran along the wall. It just kept spiking as he ran across the wall. And I was noticing it was about every 14 feet. And I said, yeah, that's some studly ghost. All right. Yeah. So it's like, they knew they'd been caught. And I'm like, no, it's fine, guys. We don't expect every night to be Halloween. We know you don't have to, put on a dog and pony show for us. We're just writers, and researchers. It's, but that's, so you get that just as much as you get the good stuff. But in the history archives and in museums, that's when you get some stuff that you're like, whoa, where did this come from? And what is this picture? And, how have I never heard about this? And then you go out and investigate those sites, and that's where you get your best evidence. We found one that was it was a mineral spring spa up in Claremont, and I'd never heard of it. And it was there was a postcard from it in this old history archive showing basically a face of a woman in the well that had sprung up. Now, it had long closed. We couldn't find any location on it. The postcard didn't have an address, of course. And this is ancient history, so there's no, Googling it or anything like that. It's from the 20s and 30s as a tourist attraction. So we had to dig. We finally found an old tourist map with it. And we go and figure out the location. And it is now a golf course. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I wonder if that well is still out there, at the spring. And we go out and we get to the spring, and there's no face in it. There's no nothing, but there it is. So as we take the pictures and we get home, I was a little disappointed. I'm like, oh man, I wanted to see the face in the water and all that. And we get home and we're looking through the photos, and there is a reflection of a face in the water that we did not notice on our screens at the time. But when we blew it up on the big screen, there it was. So that's the best evidence we got.
And absolutely no possibility that reflection could have been somebody looking down while you were taking the picture.
So that we were the only two people there at the time. It is
okay.
Possible that it's some weird light effect, because it's not a clear face, but it does come awfully close to that postcard, which it could just be a trick of the light of the well.
Pareidolia, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. That we just happened to catch with our digital camera, 80 years later. So, but you never know. You never know. It's definitely the one that gives me the chills.
Yeah, and we all get that one thing that just gives us pause. Is it for real? And I got to tell you, I appreciate your use of history. We're getting ready to take our last break here, but when we get back, Mark, I want to talk about the phenomenon I call paranormal tourism. I believe you use the term dark tourism, but I'd like to chat with you about that and kind of get a feel of where this is going in our society today. So folks, stay with us. This is Paranormal Stakeout. My guest tonight, Mark Muncy. We'll be back right after these messages.
If you are looking for a safe, zero-calorie natural option to the harmful artificial sweeteners on the market today, Just Like Sugar is what you're looking for. Just Like Sugar is a wonderful natural alternative for those health-conscious people who choose a calorie-restricted diet with a great, pure, sweet flavor that tastes just like sugar. Just Like Sugar is a great natural option for people suffering from diabetes and may be useful in restricted diet programs where standard sugars are not allowed and does not cause a laxative effect of some other sweeteners. Just Like Sugar comprises a perfect blend of chicory root fiber, natural calcium, natural vitamin C, and Just Like Sugar's sweetness comes from the natural flavors from the peel of the orange. Just Like Sugar is a natural alternative to harmful artificial sweeteners and will change the way that you believe all natural sweetener products taste. Just Like Sugar is available at your local Whole Foods markets, Wild Oats markets, Henry's, Sun Harvest, and many other fine natural food stores in the U.S., Canada, and worldwide. They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by Ellie Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now and receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X-Zone, Sci-Fi, and Horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. free video on demand, live streaming events from around the world, interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
And we are back on Paranormal Stakeout. We've had a great discussion tonight with my guest, Mark Muncy of Eerie, Florida. I want to just take a second to make sure that you're aware of some of his books that are out there. Freaky Florida, Creepy Florida, and, of course, Eerie, Florida. And the upcoming one, I believe, Eerie Travels is coming up soon. Mark's website is Eerie, Florida, and that's spelled EERIE Florida.com. So check out his websites, and I'd also like you to check out the websites here at the X-Zone Nation, www.xzbn.net. And by going there, you're going to see some of the best programming in the paranormal and supernatural you'll find anywhere. So I want to encourage all of you to check out the site and see some of the great programming. You can also find me at www.paranormalstakeout.com or the website for my team, www.paranormalfbi.com. So would love to hear from you and get your comments and thoughts. Mark, once again, as always with you, the show goes quick because it's always fun chatting with you and hearing about the legends out there. But in this last few minutes that we have together, I want to talk about what I call paranormal tourism. You call it dark tourism. Folks have always wanted to know about the unknown. They wanted to know what's on the other side, and it just seems to be growing. What are your thoughts on that? Agree or disagree?
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, just look at Casadega, our wonderful little town of weird in the middle of Florida, founded by psychics and mediums. But they used to hate the fact that people would come there looking for ghosts and demons, the devil's chair, all these other legends, and they would be like, no, there's no cemetery here. There's no nothing. Go away. You can just come here for spiritual enlightenment. And then suddenly they realized that there's money in ghosts and paranormal. So suddenly they're like, oh, the hotel's haunted. The ghosts were here all the time. They were just hiding in this room. We just didn't know. Come on out. Let's have a ghost tour. Let's have a ghost walk. And it's so funny because it's like a total 180 from just even maybe 5-10 years ago. And I think with the rise of the paranormal TV shows, you look at Travel Channel now and Discovery Channel, or even History to an extent, there's, you'll still see some stuff on the Romans or, something on Rome or Greece, but that used to be all the channel was. Now the channel is Ancient Aliens and, paranormal, Dead Files and, Ghost Adventures and all that. 90% of their channel is ghosts and monsters. So, river monsters and, mountain men, finding Bigfoot. It's, oh my gosh. And so that's made it into the tourism too. Every town. You used to go to St. Augustine, there were 3 or 4 ghost tours. Now there's a dozen.
Yep.
Key West is, full. Every beach town in Florida has a ghost tour. It's amazing. And there's history in them, which is great to go on one that'll give you the history and give you some of the real tales. And that's great. And then there's some that just do the famous ones, which is fine too. But there's one down in Key West. You get to go see Robert the Doll at night. That's fantastic. People used to never get to do that. Now you do.
Yeah, I do tours here in Vero. They're historical tours, historical ghost tours, and I really am intrigued at the uptick. And a lot of folks do want to hear the history. They also want to hear the haunted history, and it just seems like the thirst for more knowledge or experience is almost insatiable with folks. And so I'm actually seeing an uptick when I thought it was going to kind of maybe go the other way, but it hasn't. And I'm kind of curious as to your opinion. Has the interest really grown? I can't really say it's from just the TV. The TV shows have been out for so long.
It's also the internet. You now have, you can go online and click, and suddenly, where before you were afraid, oh man, if I tell anybody about this ghost story that happened to me, nobody's going to believe me. But now you're one click away from 1 million people groups that have the same experience, that want to know your story, that will not ridicule you, will not think less of you. And that's why we're getting so many more stories and so many more legends are coming out. And then I even think, even back when creepypasta and all those things started coming out and people were making up their own urban legends and stuff, look at Slender Man and all that, but it opened up other stuff. Like for us, looking into, we knew there was a Tampa Bay tie to Slender Man, and that helped us look up the Tampa Bay Trestle Bridge monster, which is, oh my gosh, it seems to be an inspiration for Slender Man. And that's a whole nother story we got to go into. And so, yeah, I think it's getting bigger. It's getting more interest. People definitely come up to us more freely with ghost stories now than even 5 years ago.
Oh, absolutely. And I had just taken a trip to England, and I was getting calls over there about when you're doing the next tours. But this upsurge, this interest, which especially with the history, I'm really pleased about, because I love talking about history. But there's a bad side, the dark side of this, if you will. And that's the folks that are making things up for profit or to take advantage of.
Yeah,
what are you seeing with that?
You definitely see that. You see, because of the amount of people doing it, there's competition now. So it becomes I've got to outdo the other guy. And it's even happening on the TV shows. Every week's got to be Halloween. Every week something spooky's got to happen. And it's like, that's not going to be the way on a ghost tour. But these ghost tours, we're giving you equipment so you can go into this haunted building and you'll get, if you see anything unusual, let us know. And suddenly everybody's EMF detectors go off, and you're in a building with alarm systems and Wi-Fi and all this. Of course your EMF detector is going to go off. Everybody's got their cell phone on, but if you go on a real tour, with real professionals, they're going to tell you, hey, turn your phones to airplane mode so that there's no Wi-Fi, no nothing getting out, do all this. And a lot of people think, oh, they're doing this because they don't want, people to know that they're boring. It's like, no, they're the ones that are legit. They're the ones trying to help you. But it's so frustrating when you go on a tour that's so amazing and you get all the history and you get some really cool places. And then you go on another tour later and they drive by these amazing places to tell you something they made up about the restaurant on the corner, because the restaurant paid them some money to draw you in there for a pub crawl.
Or we've actually got folks, and I've had some recent experiences with this, with folks that try to tell you something that they're not, or make claims that they can't do. And that concerns me. So the question I got to ask you, I know your work, I know your mettle. What do we do as, for lack of a better term, an industry or a field of endeavor? What do we do to police ourselves? How do we keep those types of individuals or those situations out of the picture? How do we resolve that?
I honestly think it is just a matter of peer review, because you can't, I see so many people, I'm a certified Bigfoot hunter, I'm a certified ghost hunter.
Certified by who?
That's exactly. There's no authority on this. It's still,
Thank you.
Verge science. I mean, it's still, chiropractic medicine is still not 100%, by our fields. Many doctors go, that's, superstition. So yeah, but it does help people, make them feel better. So yeah, I think parapsychology and paranormal and Bigfoot hunting and all that, I think, if you've got the expertise and you've got experience, you can say that. And I definitely think if that's why so many of the legit ones are like, please just, point out on TripAdvisor, point out on Yelp, point out on, I'm talking about the old guy ones here, showing my age, but that's why they're so important to put up, please put up a good review for me, because, hey, that place over there has billboards and, a team of 30 guys who jump out and scare you, which, that's fun too. I like those tours where some people mix in some of my old haunted house techniques with their tour, but as long as they're still telling the real story and some real history with it, I'm cool with that. I love some of the Ghosts and Gravestones stuff where they dress up as characters and give the POV perspective,
with that.
Of the history. That's cool. I love that. Just don't make up stuff. That's we went to Savannah and we went on several ghost tours, and many of them were excellent. And we went on one that was just, they would skip the main stories They would tell some of the famous ones, but different variants. But then they would tell some ones that were just like, what? I have never heard this. And sure enough, you look it up. There's nothing on it. You start digging into it. Mm-hmm. It's something some college kid made up just because they were, they're running the tour bus and no one's going to stop them.
Yeah. So it should be buyer beware. Check out before you take one of these tours. And remember, if they're not going to talk about history, then the rest doesn't matter, because without history, all this other paranormal stuff just doesn't matter. And then one other thing I'm going to mention real quick, and this is the drum that I beat all the time: standards and training. We've got to come up with standards and training in our field in order for folks to be credible, so that we're doing things the same way. That's just my feeling on it. Without standards and training, you cannot move forward. It remains a rabble. That's my opinion anyway.
I would like it if they would label, they just say a theatrical haunt experience.
There you go.
Or something like that. Then you can be like, okay. And, if they even just say, oh, it's, a story, an evening of stories and legends, that's fantastic. That's fine. You're not saying, that this is real. When they say real haunts, real buildings, real this, that's when you start to go, okay, that's cool, but, let's make sure they're real. And then, and that's what I want to see that. And that's when you need to, if you go on one of these tours and you hear the ghost story, look it up. I mean, there's so many websites that do it too. We were talking before the show about, one infamous one that we all talk about, that it has some real stories, but then they have these completely weird, wild versions of them written on it, that have nothing to do with the real ghost or the real legend or the real monster. And you're just like, the real cryptid. And you're just like, this is, oh my gosh. And it leads so many people on wild goose chases.
It does. And unfortunately, my friend, keep it real, folks. That's the message here tonight. But unfortunately, Mark, our time has come to an end. So, folks, I'm going to sign off now, but I appreciate everybody listening. Thank you, Mark Muncy, for being here. Be with us next week, folks. And until then, we'll see you on the other side. Good night.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X-Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X-Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X-Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X-Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzbn.net. xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.